Good morning, everybody. John here with Adventures in Wrenching. In today's adventure, we're going to be diving back into the 2009 Project Impala. Go past my herd here. It's developed a problem that apparently is pretty common on these, and that is the vehicle gets stuck in park. Also, sometimes the key won't come out, and it's electronically controlled on these. We'll go to the other side. And like I said, it's supposed to be a pretty common problem. But put it in, you can start it like normal, no issue. But you cannot brake press, doesn't matter. You cannot get it in gear. It's stuck. Now, there is a TSB on this. It is called an engineering TSB, which covers this exact issue. And it is 080730007B, and it talks about the key intermittently not coming out and or it being stuck in the park position. So, let's get started. Now this is supposed to come out with just a pop here. It's supposed to be spring clip activated. I would still be careful. To avoid what I just about did. There we go. Let's get this out. And all my other superfluous junk out. Now this was, like I said, this was a in a previous video. This is a former Department of Transportation supervisor car. And okay, I see two screws there. This comes out. I don't see anything. Now there is supposed to be a silver safety switch in here, which I'll show you, that you should be able to push to get this to get out of gear. But I don't feel it. And all sorts of stuff in there. Alright, so I'm going to go get a couple of tools, and we're going to take this center console out as well. That ought to be fun. Now it says you're supposed to pull the shifter off as well, and there's a Phillips screw up front too. So let me go get the rest of the tools I need. Okay, you can see for the shifter it's just a regular Phillips screw. Probably should use a short screwdriver to pull this out and not lose it, which I didn't. Yay, it's good news. And that pulls straight off. So now you got room to work. And that's got a simple detent that goes down through. Next, just a regular screwdriver will do that, or you can use I believe it's 8mm. Let's see if I guessed right. I did not. It is probably 7mm. Let me go get that. Yeah, I keep forgetting that GM likes 7mm. It's Ford that likes 8mm. So this is going to be nice and simple. We'll just loosen these up. There's two there. Then when you look down inside, and there's 4 down in here as well. So we're going to go ahead and rip those out. This is pretty easy. You don't need to watch as I pull those, just as long as you know where they're at. And you guys can join me in a couple seconds. To be honest, on these, you are actually better off with a long Phillips screwdriver, because you can get down there so much easier than trying to fight with a ratchet. So if you have one available, go ahead and do that, because it works out way easier. Okay, so all you have to do once you get this far is grab from the back right down here and lift straight up. And this console lifts up and out. Now there's wires here, so obviously I want to do that, but I'll be able to show you the culprit here in a minute as we get further on down there. For the cigarette lighter, there's a little push clip right here, and that's all you have to do to get those out. And there's one in the center console as well. And this has been rewired. I have to see how this works. Wonder what that goes to. Okay, that's just cigarette lighters. So there's one in the back as well. And we'll get to that in a minute. Way down in here. Well, the console is out, and it is, to be quite honest, pretty nasty. Now, those 4 holes right there are for the radio that was in this, for the being a state vehicle. You can see the antenna up on the hood there. So, we're going to go ahead and clean that up. Now, as I was saying, here's your emergency button right down here on these. This button, because I can still not do anything, but when you push that button, of course I can't show it on camera hardly, but there we go. It will get in and out of gear. Now, what is supposed to be the problem on this is this harness right here. And actually, see that? That wire came right out. So since that wire came out, that's telling me already that this is the problem, because this sends a signal to activate this to let you do this. So problem's not solved yet, but problem is discovered, and I've already got the replacement part. I'll show you that in a minute. They're readily available. Cost me about 20 bucks through a online source, but there are several online sources that are all about the same price, and go for there. Hold on. Okay, getting this adapter out is a small screwdriver, and you have to pull it out that way, just so you guys are aware. And there you go. It's a 4-wire setup. Now, one thing that they point out, and you'll see, is you definitely have to make sure that you remember where the wires go, because the new replacement is not color coded. So I'm going to open that up in just a moment, and we'll take a look and see what I'm looking for with that. All right. It is such a common problem, in fact, that Delco, which is the main maker of parts for General Motors, has a separate replacement for this. PT3923, or the GM number of 135-83923, one connector. And you can see it's not color coded, but they do give you butt connectors. And I do this a little bit differently, because I actually strip the plastic off these, or I'll grab some others that I can strip that, because I just use the actual metal part and then I heat shrink once I've soldered it in place. I don't just crimp. Call it overkill, but I only like to do a job once if I can help it. Okay, so let me discuss this problem a little bit. That went up towards the top up here. Anyway, according to the TSB, the engineering TSB for this, Part of the problem was that they said that they rerouted some of these harnesses wrong, which did not create enough distance so that it was constantly under pressure and would eventually pull the wires loose. As you can see in my hand, it did that. So with this new, longer harness, as you can see about how long the wires are, what I'm going to do is I'm going to snip up closer here, and then we're going to rewire it, and then that is going to give us plenty of room to tuck that back in here under the console so it's not in the way. Now, I do have some other goodies, probably a higher trim level of stuff that is under here. And we'll just tuck that away and leave it where it was. And that's to the rear power outlet. But that is what the TSB said was the problem, is this was too tight on some of these. Would pull the wire loose, which it did, and prevent a signal from going to this, which prevents it from releasing. And the other side of that is if you were already driving around and it did that, it would not allow the key to come out of the ignition. Same problem. It would not recognize that this was back in gear, so it wouldn't tell your key that it was working either. So multiple problems. So we're going to take my handy dandy rusty wire snips here. We're going to snip this off and go get my solder gun, and we're going to solder this in place. And to prove a point, I just kind of screwed myself over. I turned the key on so that I could roll the windows down, which I did, and now I cannot get my key back out because that's disconnected. So, basically just proving my point. So now, before I can get my key out, I'm going to have to do all this wired up. Definitely hoping this works. Okay, just a recommendation. This is how I do it. Doesn't mean you necessarily have to do it that way, but I try to lay out a part the same way that it was actually sitting in the car. So this harness right now is oriented the exact same way that it was on the side of the console over here, so my wires are right. So in theory, when I take my new harness, I should be able to snip the wires, or strip the wires, and follow the leads, and go color to color. And in the same spot, and we should be golden. So let's get started. Okay, pay close attention. The replacement wire has all 6 leads on it, and the factory one has 4. So make sure that you take care and watch your position. We're going to be snipping off these 2 bottom wires right here, because as you see the orientation here, it's the 2 top ones, and all 3 on the right hand side and the top one on the left hand side. So I need to keep all 3 on, if I don't drop it, all 3 on this side where my finger's at, and then this top one right here. So let's go ahead and snip those off. Okay, you can see that I've got the first crimp on. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my soldering iron. I'm going to solder that in place. I do have 2 pieces of shrink wrap. One that's going to go over the wire, and you do have to make sure that it's large enough to actually fit over the crimp, not the wire itself. And then I'm going to have a bigger piece of shrink wrap to bubble over all of it, so this is not going to come apart, get wet, or anything like that. Now I get to do the same to the other side. And that should be nice and secure. Alright, that's enough of that. You know how to solder. Now one thing you'll notice I did is I put a metal plate under here so it catches any loose solder. Once it cools, it's no big deal, but you definitely don't want this hot solder going down inside. Even if it just smolders the carpet, you might catch something else on fire, and that would suck. So that's why I do this. Alright. I'm sure most of you know how to do this, but I'll do it anyway. Shrink wrap, you put the right size under there. You can do it with a blow dryer, you could do it with a lighter, you could do it with a number of things. But that makes a nice seal over the soldered joint that you just did, so none of this is going to get wet, it's going to hold, it's not going to come out of its socket, so on and so forth. So now I get to rinse, repeat 3 more times, and I should have all of this bundled together, and then we'll go from there. Okay, moment of truth. Harness is in. Wires are laying here, but they're not underneath yet. I'll reroute them underneath. Everything is shrink wrapped. I did test it and was able to shut the key off. It starts. Ha! Sweet! It all works. So that was the problem. But we'll get this wrapped up and then we'll talk about this a little bit more. Thank you all for coming along for the ride. Another successful adventure. Everything is the way that it is supposed to be now. It works. Key goes on. Turns on. Shouldn't be any check engine lights, which there aren't. Push on the brake. Goes in gear. Goes in reverse. Locks. And does that. So, that ends another adventure. If you found this helpful at all, please, as I grow this channel, like, subscribe, follow me here and on Facebook, and I will see you on the next adventure. Bye now.